I can't sell a company to somebody. An organization has to want to buy a company, which completely changes the dynamic. And so everything is so much harder than people, myself, ever imagine. And just like having kids, right? Like you have a child, and you're like, was the hardest thing ever. Right? I have two children. I have a 7 and 11-year-old, two boys. And the second time catches you by surprise. It's like, how could it be so hard? It's like, well, you should have known. You had a kid 4 years ago. And that's what entrepreneurship's like. It's so much more difficult than people might imagine it's going to be.
Yeah, and I want to go back for anyone watching. If you have questions, you can type them in the comments, and we'll have Ian answer them. So a lot of people want to own a business, and I'm curious, when you were doing this, especially in the beginning, were there moments where you were like, I don't know if this is going to work, or this is way harder, or maybe this isn't the right thing? And if so, how did you kind of decide to push through to continue?
My decision making is quite a bit different than others. So, I mean, I can say for me, I just don't I don't have a quit button, and so I don't really contemplate or entertain the thoughts. I mean, not to say I don't stop things. Like at some point, you have to take that thing out back and shoot it in the head, and like you're done. And sometimes you shouldn't, but you did, and too bad, and you move on. And sometimes you should have, and you didn't, and you suffered longer. But the reason I say I process or make decisions differently, like regarding what you're asking, is, so much of my decision making is a response to the present situation. Not that I'm strategic, right? I make plans, but so much of my decision making is a primal gut response to what I'm facing in the moment. And this permeates everything. And that's why before we started, I mentioned I've never had 2 days that are similar. I'm 39 years old, and let's just take coronavirus. Okay, I live in a treehouse. My treehouse is small. Right, this is like my office where I can plug in the internet. And that's a tiny place. You'd think I would get a regiment, right? Because I'm home for 2 months. Like you think I'd get there's not a single, like 2 months, same place. I have not had a similar day. So that's why I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question in a way that's relevant, because other people don't really function that way. The amount of stress that I emotionally bear to live the way that I live is unfathomable for most people. But I have a personality disorder. It's called a zero stress personality.
Is that true? I feel
yes,
like you
it's
don't
true.
ever feel a sense of stress at any moment.
Well, no, I do. I do. I mean, I have stressors.
Yeah.
And there might be like outside sense of anxiety, but it's the agreement with those things that I both have a natural characteristic. I'm so thankful. And then hard work, 1,000 hours of counseling, incredibly dedicated to self-awareness, realizing like, okay, how can I build resistance to anxiety, to fear, to stress, to insecurity, while also being honest with myself and not pretending like everything's okay with some sort of false optimism, which is the real tough balance for really optimistic people and positive people to do, is to strike that balance of like honesty with oneself, with difficulties that are being faced, and facing those head on, and then choosing to see things in the best possible light, assuming the best, not believing the worst, over and over and over again, for people and for situations. So yeah, but as far as stress and anxiety, I've taken a lot of personality tests, and like the ocean test, there's an anxiety meter, and so it goes from 0 to 100, like you're the most anxious person in the world, and negative 100. So most of my readings were kind of like a normal entrepreneur, except for that one. I was like a negative 99. And so the gal I was working with, she's like, you have a personality disorder. You don't feel any stress? And I'm like, cool. thanks for letting me know it's official. Not that she's a doctor, but
But where do you think that's genetic? Do you think were you like that as a kid, or you think, like you said, that's from training yourself, learning about yourself, just experiences in life?
I mean, certainly part genetic, but the genetics would quickly vanish the moment I decided to agree with fear, insecurity, shame, condemnation, guilt, anxiety. If I decide that those thoughts that try to come into my consciousness, if I decide that those are thoughts that I'm going to think about, entertain, have them over for dinner, have some coffee with them, and really what do you think about that? I should be afraid. I should have a panic attack right now. Really? Oh, like that is the unconscious, subconscious thing that a lot of people are going through. Is there is an option there. Now, am I more genetically disposed to a happier, a positive, optimistic demeanor? I think so. I mean, it sure seems that way. But I think that it's work, and it's a choice, and there's a sacrifice to be made. So there's a consequence for not responding to stressors. And one of the worst consequences that I face is the way it impacts other people. And so one of the things I have to be most careful about is that I am mindful of being empathetic to others, because my life is similar to jumping out of an airplane with no parachute. So that's fun. Like, it's fun. It's adrenaline rushing and super fulfilling in so many ways. Just because I'm having fun doesn't mean my two boys, that my decision making doesn't impact them, or the people I work with, right? Strangers. I mean, so whatever. So I'm always trying to be mindful that, like, okay, there's a balance to all this, like, and that's the whole thing of, like, that's why I like what you do on Wednesdays. You have professional psychologists come in and try to help people on your podcast, which is a bit different than people telling their stories, kind of like what we're doing right now for Mondays. And for those that aren't like avid Carrie fans, Fridays she shares all of her own gems.
Thank you.
And it's super encouraging. And so, I think that, there's a lot there, but I probably should let you ask more questions.
So, well, I think, like you said, I mean, one of the things that I've learned from doing this show long enough is that everybody is totally different, right? Everybody responds to things different. Everybody has their own way of living, their own way of being, different mindsets. There's no one way to do or be.
That's right.
So, but what is your advice for somebody that's saying, like, wow, I am somebody, maybe they're super anxious, or they have a business, and especially during this time, which we're talking, in April 2020 here during coronavirus time, and they're feeling stressed out about their business, but they want to do it. Like, do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you could give, especially people that are owning a business or starting a business right now, of how to deal with some of those stressors and anxieties?
Yeah. So if a person, like, if you're there, you're watching, I'm loving you right now. I know we're not just the two of us. We're a community for a moment. Or maybe you're watching this afterwards. You deal with anxiety, fear, you're overwhelmed. Maybe it's even worse because you're locked at home. Maybe the challenges, like, I really, really can't fathom some of the challenges that people are going through. And so how do you deal with anxiety? And regarding business, like, you have a company, you're an entrepreneur, it's a side hustle, or you have a really important role at an organization. So how do you deal with it? What's my advice? My advice is that you are honest with yourself. So you can either press through it and get through what you're facing, and then move beyond it, and maybe not have to face that same situation again. Because a lot of what we face has to do with us growing in our character and evolving. You can freeze. You can drink. You can smoke. You can tune out on news. You can play games. And I have nothing against drinking and smoking. I probably would have been a pastor if I didn't cuss and drink and smoke so much. I disqualified myself over and over again. So, but I do, but I'm a spiritual man. So if that's the case, if you're just like life on pause, I'm not pressing through, I just want to like tune out. That's cool. Like that's one reason why people are graced to have escapism, entertainment, and now we get it any form or fashion we want for as long as we want, anytime we want, almost always free. It's really unique. But if that's what you're doing, if you're pressing the medicate myself button with news, with social media, with doing videos, whatever it is, like I'm pausing, I'm not pressing through, I'm just gonna, then at least just know that, and don't choose to feel guilty, bad, shamed. Don't compound your fear or anxiety with guilt and and starting to beat yourself up. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like, there's a reason why I'm escaping. I don't want to face it. Like, that's it. But most importantly, if you're actively facing that and running away from it, you're not putting it on pause, you're not facing it, you're just like, I'm never dealing with that. Like, I'm gonna pretend it doesn't exist. I'm just gonna run away from it. Well, my encouragement would be you're probably going to face the same thing in a different situation pretty soon. Because most of what we face in relationships, in business, in finances, in health, most of what we face has to do with us making decisions that put ourselves in that situation that allows us to overcome a thing that we've never overcome before and become who we really are. And so, if that's the case, if most of the hurdles and challenges and trials that we're faced with, that we're invited to overcome and push through, or to pause, right? Drink a six pack, pause, go smoke a joint, pause, whatever it is, and nothing against that. It's all good. I'm just saying, but be mindful and be aware, like that's what I'm doing. But the thing I'm most concerned about is people that run away from it, because most likely you'll run away from that relationship and you'll find a person with the exact same situation pretty soon. You'll run away from that business. You'll start another business, get invited into another business, somehow become a partner with another business, same exact situation. And you don't want to become a person that when fear and anxiety comes, that you don't push through, you don't pause and wait until you're ready to face it, but you run away pretending like that situation with different people, different geographies, different timelines, different things, but basically the same situation is probably going to come at you. And at some point, you are made to overcome it. So sooner is sometimes, not always, but sometimes better than later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that breakdown, and I just want to show JoJo says this is awesome, so we thank her for watching. So, no, I think that's a really interesting thing to either pause or push through rather than avoid. When this business was sold or taken over, where were you at that point? Were you like, awesome, I have money, I'm just gonna hang out, I'm good? Were you like, I'm ready to start the next business? Did you feel like, oh my gosh, that's been my identity for so long, what do I do? What were kind of the emotions when that happened in order to go to the next step?
Yeah, so I dealt with all that in 2013. So I started the company with my friend in 2010 at his house. I recruited the first couple dozen people. And with the help of a team, anything that we accomplished, was an us thing. We collectively, under my leadership, accomplished $1 million of annual recurring revenue, our first 100 clients. Like, it was so special. And that was probably the closest I had ever gotten to my identity being tied to my work. And so I ruptured my Achilles tendon at the office, riding a skateboard. Because, how can a man from Santa Cruz not ride a skateboard when he's up on 100 feet up and glass windows everywhere? That makes sense. It made a lot of sense to me. Ruptured my Achilles tendon. I'd already replaced myself with our executives. And so it just was like the conclusion is it's better for me to leave and go do my own thing. So since then, 2013, when I left, I've started myself half a dozen or so organizations. I've helped several dozen of my friends start companies. I've been an advisor and in some cases like an official entrepreneur in residence, which is a unique role in many organizations. And so I dealt with all the identity issues in 2013 when I kind of left abruptly and separated myself from that, and then built like a new framework, kind of gave myself a new operating system. Like, I used to think of work this way, And that was too closely tied to my identity. I don't like the consequence, because when it was removed from my life, I felt like something personal was ripped away from me rather than an outside thing that I was building and enjoying and loving. And so I made different decisions moving forward from there. And so, as far as when the company sold, what did I do? Like, not a single thing changed. Nobody knew my company had sold. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't make any difference in my calendar, my action. I already had been about a year and a half into the development of my current company, which I've been working on for 2.5 years, which is very, very important to me. And so, yeah, I don't know that it really changed much. But again, I'm not moved by a lot of things outward.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really move me most of the time. I'm a crier. You probably could ask me a question, I'd start crying. I'm an emotional man. I'm moved by emotion and love and pain and pleasure and story. But I'm not really moved by deadlines and pressures and money being there, or debt being there, or people being faithful or people being unfaithful. It's like, life is hard for everybody. So,
I want to bring up another thing, because the first time I had met you was at a voice technology event, Voice Summit, last year. And you came up on a hoverboard. And I remember everyone was like, oh, that's Ian. And I was like, who is that? I was like, I'm a brand person. And I was like, this guy is owning his brand. You were on that hoverboard, you have the glasses you have on, you had like kind of bold colors, and you just drew attention to yourself. And actually, at one point, it was really cool. There's some kids at the event, and they were like, what is that? Really excited. Then I saw that you did, I think, some advising for hoverboard, which now makes sense. But I'm curious, you said you were into skateboards. When did that kind of persona come out of, like, now I'm the guy? Like, honestly, if I see you walking on your feet, I'm shocked. So when you are on this hoverboard and you...
I literally get it. I get
persona.
it. I literally get it so I can move my trash cans. Oh, no, I'm working on, like, developing all the properties so everything is hoverboard friendly. Okay, so when I was 16, I probably started skating young. I was never good. I was always terrible. I was always a big guy. So I was like 200 pounds in junior high school. And so big guys don't fall great on skateboards. So, like, I had kind of like that mentality, like, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna use it for transportation, might ollie over a curb from time to time, but like, that's about it. Ain't no going to no skate parks. Like, no, homie doesn't play that. So I didn't get hurt skateboarding, fortunately. That wasn't really an option for me. It was just transportation. When I was 16, I owned two 1965 Barracudas, kind of like the 65 Mustang, but not as popular. Cool, like, long glass black back window. And they never ran great, so I almost always had to skate. And when I got rid of one, I got another one, and it was just like I basically was skating all the time. So that's kind of the beginning of things. I love snowboarding. And so snowboarding and skateboarding, both of those things have a moment of ecstasy. Okay, a skateboard, especially a longboard, the moment of ecstasy is right after you did the final push with your foot, and now you're going fast enough that you can start to carve on the concrete. And there's that moment for 3 seconds, 20 seconds, and it's like this ecstatic emotional feeling. And with snowboarding, it's for those 3 minutes between getting off the lift and getting back to the lift. And that 3-minute moment has different moments of, like, this feeling of, like, I feel spiritually and emotionally and physically, like, juiced right now. The hoverboard that I brought to market, which is called the GeoBlade, and now I primarily ride the One Wheel, which is our competitor that has won the game. They've done an amazing job. Kyle and his team at One Wheel, and they're a local Santa Cruz company. And so that product gives me that ecstatic feeling every moment I ride it. And it's because you control everything about the board. Like, the only way I can describe the way it feels, like, if you've never ridden it like I ride it, like, if you get on it for the first time, you're like, oh, this is hard, this takes balance, like, I'm never gonna. And, like, I've been riding boards for a long time. But if you watched Avatar, you know, the blue man, right? He's all
Mhm.
handicapped. He gets the blue body. And then she says, you have to pick a dragon. The dragon picks you. You jump and you tackle the dragon, you jump on the dragon and fly the dragon. And he looks at her and he's like, how do I fly the dragon? And she's like, you just plug in and it just happens. That is what it feels like when I ride that board. It feels like I've plugged into an extension, a mechanical extension of my consciousness of what I want to do. If I want to lean left or right, go fast or slow. And it's a really, it's one of the many reasons I'm so grateful to be born to now. You know, I was born in 1981, so I'm an elder millennial, or one of the little punk Gen Xers almost. I used to call the Gen X generation the FU generation. I definitely feel that way. You know, like that, you know, kind of agitated feeling that generation feels. I kind of share that. But because I was an old millennial, I remember when pagers came out in junior high and like cell phones in high school, and I got a computer in college. Like I've seen it from there was no technological impact on our life outside of like cars and planes and buildings, but like nothing like this, right? Now, seeing that technology hasn't just impacted giving me a supercomputer in my pocket that has 45,000 contacts that I can accomplish basically anything personally or professionally with. But in the same way that this has unlocked abundance for people in their personal communication or business abilities, a product like the hoverboard or the one wheel unlocks a ability that we have in our bodies because it was mechanically built in a way that's really made for humans to have that ecstatic feeling like all the time, and not just the 3 minutes when you get off the lift when you snowboard, or the 20 seconds after you pump as hard as you can with your foot. So anyway, that gives you a little context. I never became a surfer. I just thought it was a lot of work.
You know,
I thought, man, putting on a wetsuit, getting wet and sandy, getting clean, that's a lot of work.
You know, Ian, it's because like I said, when it comes to brand, I always talk about brand is, to me, it's not just a logo, which is what a lot of people think, but it's really about who you are and what you're about and who you're trying to serve. And just hearing that story alone tells me so much about yourself. And so it's an interesting thing because when you're at these events and you're using it, it does draw attention and people to come up to you, which is a really great brand and sales tactic in a sense. But it also, like you said, it's for you personally. It's a feeling, and I love that that's what you're talking about because it fits with your personality and with everything we're talking about. Which I want to transition to some of the work that you're doing now with your company attn.live. You know, kind of have gotten into this streaming space, video space, technology space. Can you talk about what that is and why that has kind of become like your new excitement for you within the workspace?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started a company with a team called attn.live, attn.live. I'm using my product right now. So you can see that I've been live streaming this podcast for 39 minutes. I didn't have to write the title or description. It's automatically written for me. And then you can see that I'm currently live on Alexa. So if you said to Alexa, open attn.live, what channel, Ian Utile, you'd be hearing me in real time, me and Carrie. I'm also live on our YouTube audio channel, and then we're adding all these other voice devices and social media sites. So that's the company. You know, our vision was super simple. There's a major problem in the world. Okay, the problem is if you want to communicate to all the social media sites, now, with this tool you're using right now, you can communicate if you have some technical things in place, right? Like a good microphone, a hardwired internet connection, and then you can stream, from what I understand, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. That's great, video. So I can see that, but you can't stream on the voice devices. And then you also have some option, Anchor or something of that nature, that you're sending the podcast to the podcast platform. So we're an all-in-one tool. So with our tool, you can live stream. We call it live podcast. We're creating a new category that doesn't exist, live podcasting. You can live broadcast your voice to these voice devices. Nobody else in the world can do that. So that's something that we do. Nobody else does. But we also add the ability to live broadcast your voice with an image or a GIF image to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And then we send the archive out to the other platforms. And so what this does as a product is it eliminates the need for multiple hardware. Because at one point, I was traveling with 5 cell phones, with 5 LTE cards. So I could go live on Facebook, right, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And I had all these phones. And part of it, that was kind of a show, right? Like, hey, everybody, there's a problem. Okay, here to tell you about a problem. Cost me $5,000 for these 5 phones and $500 a month. I can't afford that. You can't afford that. But that's what it takes for me to say hello to everybody at the same time. And then I'd be like, and this solves the problem. Just one button. And so.
And what's cool is like, so I am streaming this with something, but then you're streaming what I'm streaming.
That's right.
Which you can't do with this platform. So I think that's pretty interesting too, that you can kind of pull from something else.
Yeah, we could actually, to be honest, I could actually take the RTMP feed that this product outputs, and I could run the RTMP feed through ours instead of using a separate device. And this device is on LTE, so it doesn't interfere with our hardwired or whatever is going on.
Yeah.
So Attention Live is about, business is about solving problems, making money. Right? I mean, for me, it's more about laughing and building teams and like building the future. But really, that's what it comes down to. And so we're solving a huge problem. Content creators, they are struggling with distribution and struggling with ownership and automation. Like on all fronts, that's a really big deal for you and your peers, right? How do I distribute and who owns it and how do I monetize it? And is there any automation for any of this stuff anyways?
Yeah.
And so that's a problem. And we believe that our product solves that for content creators because it's any hardware, iOS, Windows, Android, doesn't matter what the software operating system is, any hardware. You're talking cell phone, watch, tablet, desktop, right? Eventually we'll be adding all the smart speakers, refrigerators and cars, right? The rings, the glasses. So any hardware, any software operating system, our software will work, and we're building in the voice interface. So instead of you tapping Attention Live and go live, you'll just say to our let's say, what do I not have in this room? Hey Cortana, I don't have Windows in here. Hey Cortana, open Attention Live, and then okay, what do you want to do? Go live, and then you can just go live with your voice. So new category, live podcasting. Doing things no other software can do, and approaching it in a way that people are talking about, but I don't see a lot of apps that are voice interface first. And so that's our approach. There's one other thing that we do. You can see this NFT thing right here. It just says NFT ERC 721. Yep. So when that's clicked, it creates a token on the Ethereum blockchain. And that token then goes into a marketplace, which means with this right here, I now have proof of ownership and an automated way to either trade, license, or sell the content that I've created. And the content that's been created through our platform is an SRT transcription, an AAC audio file, and then a design that kind of encapsulates it. Again, that's a thing that nobody's done. So that's why I've worked on this for 2.5 years with some of my closest friends, most brilliant people in the world, because we're trying to create a category, live podcasting, with voice as the interface and blockchain as the integrated cloud of sorts to provide trustworthiness and lots of automation options for our clients. So for users, it's also a big deal because they don't want to have to watch video. I mean, the reality is it's super demanding. Anybody that's watching you and I right now, we are demanding a lot of things from them. Their undivided attention, if they're going to look at the screen, their bandwidth, right? And just those, let's just stop. Undivided attention and then bandwidth is a big deal. So by providing audio as an alternate option or the only option, we now are giving them a passive consumption option that doesn't eat up bandwidth. As a content creator, same thing. Right now, you and I are having to stream our voice and our video in high def up to the cloud so that it can send it everywhere. But if we were just streaming only our voice together right now, then that would eliminate our bandwidth usage, and also it would make it less demanding for us. We don't have to go look in a mirror. We don't have to put on the only colorful shirt that we own because everything else is black.
It is. Do you know, Ian? It's so funny because I was just telling you before we got on this. I only started doing these videos probably a month and a half ago, and I love them. But the slight downside is like you have to do your hair and makeup. You have to set something up. It's a little different. When I do just audio, I can be in my pajamas all day. So
it's different.
It does add a whole nother layer, and it's great to have video. But like you're right, it's good to have that audio option and to be able to hear that from a live event or online interview like we're doing. I mean, that's a great opportunity to have. So I love that concept. You one of the things you say about yourself is you're a futurist. What does that word mean to you when you say that? I mean, I kind of hear it across the board, but I'm curious how you define that.
Good question. Sometimes I make fun of myself. I call myself a fake futurist, but that is to be lighthearted about it. Now, I'm not a scientist. Okay, so I'm not a verified, certified futurist that is part of the scientific community that studies history, studies the present, and using data makes data-based decisions, studying history and the present, not based on your own personal experience, but objectively from the outside as a researcher and saying, based on the history and the present, objectively, because I have nothing to do with this, I'm just reporting data, this is what I believe the future is like. Now, that's an official futurist. So I'm not that. I am the other type of futurist. I'm a person that imagines a better future, talks about it, gets agreement with other human beings to join me in the development of it, attempts to develop it, fails or succeeds, and when succeeds, looks back and says, gosh, how crazy. I had that idea about the future, about a thing that didn't exist. And now that thing is in existence because of the hard work of all these people to manifest the vision that I had cast of what the future could be like. So that is futurist. Now we see this on scale, like massive scale, like an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs, where as futurists, they've done a couple things, and part of what they've done is they've been super disciplined, and like those are two of the most disciplined humans in the history of business, right? Yeah. Super duper disciplined, completely courageous, right? Like they just don't care what anybody says. The government, the bank account, their employees, their board, they don't care. They already decide what the future is going to be like, and they're building it. It doesn't matter if the consumer wants it, they'll make the consumer want it. So to me, that's the entrepreneurial futurist category. And then you can look at people that take it to the furthest extreme, like a Musk or a Jobs. And then you look at people that squander that innate ability. So I think a thing for people to realize that all of us are basically hardwired to be a futurist. Like you'll hear leadership coaches say, you're a leader, everybody's a leader. We're way more futurists, all of us, than leaders. Way more. Because if you get 50 people in a room and you say, who's in charge, and they don't know each other, few people are going to stand up. Now, they could be insecure, arrogant alpha people, or they could be genuine, followable, humble yet confident leaders. But all 50 will not raise their hand and say, I'm the leader. There's going to be a few. But if you ask those 50 people, how many of you have an idea, a great idea? Like all of them do. So everybody is hardwired to be a futurist. Now, the reason why I would, after a 20-year career, be willing to, in a cheeky way, but also in an authentic way, say I am a futurist is because of the track record, right? Like I've had so many ideas that have manifested into reality that at this point in my life, there is such a long line of things that have been accurately not just predicted, but built. I would never call myself a futurist if I was a non-scientific person that looked at things and said, this is what's going to happen. I only say it because I look at things, I say, what is the best possible scenario with content creation and content consumption? I know one hardware, one software, goes everywhere, has the authenticity and trustworthiness of blockchain, automates the ability for content creators to monetize, doesn't demand so much from content consumers, right? I start to build this idea. And you go, who do I know that could help me build that? So then you start talking, and then you get agreement. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. We should totally do that. See, that is the path of having an idea as a futurist, ideas, declaring it, gathering people to agreement, and then beginning to manifest. That is what I talk about when I say that I'm willing to like put on LinkedIn, or I guess I put it everywhere now. I am a father, a friend, a futurist, and a founder. And so that's what I mean by a futurist. I have an idea, I declare it, I gather people toward it, we all agree upon it, we build it till it exists. It was just a thing in my head, and now it's impacting business or lives or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like that definition a lot. Ian, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more or they have questions? Where's the best place to do that?
They can text my cell phone. I've had the same number for 25 years. 831-566-9692. That's probably the best chance you got at getting my attention. 831-566-9692. I'm at Ian Utile everywhere on the internet. I was huge on MySpace before Facebook existed. I've been in the social media world for a long time. There's one time where I posted 5,000 times a day. I did. I posted 5,000 times a day. It was like 8 Excel sheets, all going through 8 different softwares that then distributed those 5,000 posts across 100 channels I own on Facebook and Twitter. And we were getting 52 million impressions. So like, I've been a social media guy, a little less now. More just for viewing. But Ian Utile, I'm somewhat active everywhere. So, if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, like, happy to connect with you. So I'm easy to get a hold of one way. It's easy for you to get a hold of me. Okay, you can find my number anywhere. The question is, are you persuasive enough to get me to respond?
I like it. Ted just said big on MySpace. I think that's funny. So the last question I ask all of my guests, Ian, for this show is, what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Yeah, grace. Super easy. Super, super easy. Grace. Grace with yourself first. And that includes not just good thoughts or giving yourself mercy or believing in yourself, but also having grace with how you're tackling everything. Like, just to be kind and loving to yourself, because then it's much easier to have grace with everybody outward. Grace is the opposite of what you see on CNN and Fox. So for context, what is grace? Spiritual people will have a certain definition that's a little bit different than people that are more scientific. That's an easy way to put it. But they basically mean the same thing when they're talking about grace, right? When I say it's the opposite of like Fox and CNN, those are the two most tribalistic expressions of anti-grace. Everything is about glorifying their team for bad reason and demonizing the other team. And so that's the opposite of grace. To have grace and to experience grace is to be at peace, at joy, to feel love, to feel loving, to accept, to be content, to be thankful and grateful in your circumstances, and with other people, to extend that same grace to other people. So grace is, always will be, my word of the day.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ian, for sharing your journey and your story. And I look forward to seeing more of what you do with everything else. So thank you.
Yes, so fun.